Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank our distinguished panel for their sharing their stories this evening. It's, wow, it's compelling. Thank you for what you're being here. I think, Ms. Kwok, you made the statement here that even though I was in the land of the free, I was not free. I was trapped in the constant mental pressure of being hunted. And Mr. Zhang, in your testimony, you say, no matter where in the world you are, even the most mature democracies with centuries-old traditions of civil liberties, you are never free as long as anyone or anything you care about is under the control of the CCP. That is as hard-hitting and chilling as the statements that we've seen in this committee. You know, if you don't feel free in this country, we've got a problem. We have to find a way to allow you to be able to be free and feel free. And so I guess in your testimony, Mr. Zhang, you talked about Radio Free Asia and the Radio Free Voice of America as being impactful in being able to get the message out. Would you like to expand on it just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think the first time that Radio Free Asia reached out to me was sometime earlier this year regarding the formation of that pro-democracy organization that's in George Washington University. And then I formed a relationship with the journalist. And then she reached out to me later in the summer about whether there was any incidents of students reporting on their own teachers on Chinese campuses. But then I directed her to the fact that many of the suspected members of the pro-democracy organization at George Washington.
How widespread is Radio Southeast Asia, Radio Free Asia? How extensive is it? Is it listened to in China?
Oh. I would say for a lot of pro-democracy Chinese people, they would listen to media like Voice of America and Radio Free Asia, depending on what their home languages are. The Mandarin speakers, they listen to the Mandarin one, and for Tibetan people, I think the audience is much larger in China. Okay.
You know, again, go back to your hard-hitting statements for just a second, and I think we've talked about a little bit here about protecting you even when you're here. Would each one of you like to give me some other ideas? I think you've mentioned a couple of them already, on ways that you would be, that you could feel more protected. Is there a way we can do something here as a committee, as a country? Should the police be more informed of your being in the neighborhood, being in the area, so that they would be starting to watch out for you? What sort of things do you would you like to see done that would make you feel more safe? Because you've talked about some retribution, some things that you've experienced with regards to not just harassment, but physical abuse.
Yeah, so for the informal kind of transnational repression, I would say imposing some kind of consequence on that kind of behavior on American soil is very important. And for the formal kind of transnational repression, I would say giving the dissidents from authoritarian regimes a safe place to continue on their ideals. I think that is very important.
Okay, Ms. Kwok.
I would also like to add, I think there are really a few aspects. So the first thing, you know, in my entire experience was that actually local law enforcement are not educated on what transnational repression is. And I think that is a way to start, you know, making us feel more safe, is that when I speak to a police, I expect that they have some sort of knowledge or understanding of the situation. But if I get dismissed because they think, you know, there's no such thing of Chinese government being able to do this sort of repression on American soil, then of course my instinctive reaction would be feeling dismissed and not protected. So there are several things I think that can be done. First is educating the local law enforcement officers, and secondly is opening an FBI tip line that would gather intelligence and information of potentially perpetrators of TNR. And thirdly, having someone with the linguistics ability to speak to Hong Kongers, Uyghurs, Tibetans, or impacted communities is also very important, because a lot of the times people who are targeted may not be able to, you know, speak the most accurately in English because this is not their first language. And I think having officers who are trained in other linguistic capabilities would be a huge impact. And I think it's also important, last but not least, to have a better research on United Front Network here in the United States. As I've said in my statement, United Front Network is what enables transnational repression. These networks have been trained by pro-Beijing officials to do this kind of harassment, intimidation, information gathering, and assault. If they can still roam freely in America, what we're going to see in the next 10 years is more horrific cases happening. And if we only act by then, it will be too late, because by then we'll see kidnapping, we'll see people actually dying from these assaults. And I think by that point, it's too late to really pluck all these, infiltration or networks that have been finding their ways in America. So right now in Congress, there's a bipartisan legislation called the Transnational Repression Policy Act, and I believe that legislation is a way for us to start building capacity for U.S. institutions as well.